The Treaty of Versailles was signed on the 11th of November 1918 inside a railway car. The treaty formally concluded World War I. A key aspect of the treaty focused on Germany's responsibilities. The treaty imposed significant economic reparations on Germany. These reparations were designed to compensate the Allied nations for war damages. The economic demands placed a substantial burden on the German economy. The economic strain on Germany is illustrated through visual data. Charts and graphs are used to represent the financial obligations. The reparations demanded are juxtaposed with Germany's yearly economic production. This comparison emphasizes the impracticality of meeting the imposed financial requirements. The visualization underscores the severe economic challenges faced by Germany. The political climate in Allied countries was tense after World War I. Leaders like Clemenceau and Lloyd George faced immense pressure. A significant portion of the public demanded retribution from Germany. This pressure influenced the negotiations and terms of the peace treaties. The desire for revenge shaped the political landscape and diplomatic strategies. The War Guilt Clause imposed significant humiliation on the German population. It fostered deep resentment and anger among German citizens. This resentment contributed to a sense of national wound. The concept of national wound refers to the collective psychological trauma experienced by a nation. Hyperinflation in 1,920 seconds. Germany was an economic disaster, characterized by rapidly devaluating currency. This devaluation led to an extreme and swift increase in the prices of goods and services. The hyperinflation severely impacted the savings of ordinary citizens. Livelihoods were disrupted as wages failed to keep pace with the escalating cost of living. The crisis eroded economic stability and public trust in the financial system. Economic chaos in Europe fostered an environment conducive to extremist political movements. Italy saw the rise of Mussolini and his fascist movement during this period. Germany experienced a surge in radical political parties due to economic instability. These extremist movements capitalized on public discontent and economic hardship. The international community failed to adequately address Germany's economic problems in the early 1930 seconds. This failure was characterized by a lack of effective negotiation. Realistic solutions to Germany's economic issues were not implemented. The absence of international cooperation exacerbated Germany's economic struggles. This inaction had significant consequences for the global economic and political landscape. The Great Depression significantly impacted Germany in the 1930 seconds. Millions of Germans found themselves unemployed due to the economic downturn. The widespread unemployment led to severe economic hardship and social unrest. Traditional political parties struggled to address the scale of the economic collapse. The existing political structures were perceived as inadequate to handle the crisis. This environment of economic despair and political instability created opportunities for extremist movements. Radical movements often presented straightforward answers to intricate societal issues. These movements proposed drastic solutions designed to rapidly address complex problems. A key promise was the restoration of national pride, appealing to patriotic sentiments. Another common pledge involved guaranteeing jobs, addressing economic anxieties. By offering simple solutions and dramatic changes, these movements gained traction. The League of Nations' ineffectiveness is highlighted by Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1931. Japan's military action constituted a significant breach of international agreements and norms. The League of Nations formally condemned Japan's invasion as an act of aggression. Despite the condemnation, the League failed to implement effective measures to halt the invasion. The League's inability to enforce its resolutions exposed its limitations in maintaining global peace. This failure significantly undermined the League's credibility and authority on the international stage. The simulation illustrates a disaster scenario. The disaster could have been prevented with realistic reparations. Economic support from the international community was crucial. Punitive measures exacerbated the situation. The scene highlights the impact of appropriate international response. The victors applied 19th century thinking to 20th century problems. A key example was the economic crushing of Germany. The intent was to permanently eliminate the German threat. However, this approach failed to account for modern complexities. Instead, it created conditions ripe for extreme solutions and instability. This highlights the danger of applying outdated strategies to new challenges. The mid-1930 seconds represented a critical juncture in global politics. extremist governments were actively making preparations for war. These preparations included military buildup and strategic alliances. Democratic nations, in contrast, were primarily focused on maintaining peace. This focus involved diplomatic efforts and appeasement policies. The situation was reaching a tipping point, with the balance of power shifting. The appeasement policy involves making concessions to aggressive powers. It aims to avoid conflict by giving aggressors what they demand. However, this approach often emboldens aggressive powers. Appeasement can be interpreted as a sign of weakness by aggressors. Ultimately, it may fail to prevent conflict and instead escalate it. The invasion of Poland in September 1939 is depicted. It is portrayed as the culmination of a chain reaction that started in 1918. Unresolved tensions from previous conflicts are highlighted as a contributing factor. Impossible economic conditions exacerbated the situation. Failed international cooperation is shown as a key element leading to the invasion. Understanding history is crucial for recognizing recurring patterns. Historical awareness enables the identification of similar trends in contemporary times. Recognizing these patterns allows for proactive problem solving. Addressing issues early can prevent them from escalating into crises. Historical insight provides a framework for informed decision-making. Applying historical lessons helps mitigate potential future challenges. The Treaty of Versailles was signed with the intention of securing lasting peace. Signatories believed they were preventing future large-scale conflicts. However, the treaty's terms inadvertently set the stage for future conflict. The treaty failed to address the underlying issues that led to World War I. It ultimately contributed to the conditions that sparked World War II. The next major war would involve more advanced weaponry and deadlier consequences. The visualization focuses on economic instability in Europe following World War I. Key indicators of this instability include high inflation rates. Unemployment figures also serve as a critical measure of economic hardship. The data highlights the severe economic challenges faced by European nations. These challenges arose from the war's destruction and financial burdens. The visualization aims to illustrate the magnitude of economic distress during this period. The Treaty of Versailles imposed significant territorial losses on Germany. Military restrictions were a key component of the treaty, limiting Germany's armed forces. The treaty placed substantial financial burdens on Germany, demanding reparations. These terms collectively aimed to weaken Germany and prevent future aggression. The Treaty of Versailles was shaped by the motivations of key Allied leaders. Georges Clemenceau of France sought to ensure France's security against future German aggression. David Lloyd George of Britain aimed to balance punishing Germany with maintaining European stability. Woodrow Wilson of the U.S. prioritized establishing a League of Nations to promote international cooperation and prevent future wars. The German public held strong feelings regarding the treaty. Resentment was a common emotion among Germans. Many felt humiliated by the terms of the treaty. Anger was also a prevalent reaction to the treaty's conditions. These negative feelings reflected widespread dissatisfaction with the treaty. The Weimar Republic was marked by significant political instability. Frequent changes in government were a common occurrence. This instability made consistent policy implementation difficult. Extremist uprisings further destabilized the political landscape. These factors contributed to a volatile and uncertain environment. The Dawes Plan and Young Plan were initiatives aimed at restructuring Germany's World War I reparations. The Dawes Plan, introduced in 1924, sought to stabilize Germany's economy through reorganized payment schedules and international loans. The Young Plan, adopted in 1929, further reduced the total reparations amount and established the Bank for International Settlements. Despite these efforts, both plans faced challenges and ultimately had limited long-term success due to the global economic depression. The 1922 showcased a high degree of global economic interdependence. Nations were increasingly linked through trade, finance, and investment. Germany's economic struggles had significant repercussions on other countries. These repercussions manifested through reduced trade and financial instability. This illustrates how interconnected economies can transmit economic shocks internationally. Nationalism surged across Europe due to widespread economic hardship. Political instability further fueled nationalist sentiments. Economic struggles created a sense of insecurity and resentment. This insecurity led people to seek solidarity within their national identity. Political instability weakened existing institutions and governance. Nationalist movements gained traction by promising stability and national unity. Germany began a gradual rebuilding of its military strength. This rebuilding was a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed strict limits on Germany's military forces. Germany's actions defied international agreements. The military expansion set the stage for future conflicts. In 1936, Germany remilitarized the Rhineland, a region demilitarized by the Treaty of Versailles. This action was a direct violation of the treaty terms established after World War I. The remilitarization marked a significant challenge to the post-war European order. Despite the clear breach, other European powers offered little to no effective resistance. The lack of response emboldened Hitler and further destabilized the geopolitical landscape. The Anschluss refers to the annexation of Austria into Nazi Germany on the 12th of March, 1938. This event was a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles and the Treaty of Saint-Germain. These treaties explicitly prohibited the unification of Austria and Germany. Despite these treaty obligations, the international community failed to effectively prevent the Anschluss. The lack of intervention demonstrated the weakness of the League of Nations and the appeasement policies of major powers. The Sudetenland crisis centered on the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia, inhabited by a large German-speaking population. Nazi Germany, under Adolf Hitler, sought to annex the Sudetenland, claiming to protect the rights of ethnic Germans. The Munich Agreement, signed in 1938, involved Germany, Britain, France, and Italy, but excluded Czechoslovakia. Under the agreement, the Sudetenland was ceded to Germany in an attempt to appease Hitler and avoid war. The policy of appeasement, while initially intended to maintain peace, ultimately failed to prevent World War II. Nazi propaganda was designed to exploit existing grievances within German society. It aimed to channel public discontent towards specific scapegoats and enemies. A key element was the promotion of aggressive expansionist policies. Propaganda fostered a sense of national victimhood and the need for territorial acquisition. This narrative justified military actions as necessary for German survival and prosperity. Through these strategies, Nazi propaganda effectively mobilized public support for war and conquest. Nazi Germany systematically exploited occupied territories for economic gain. This exploitation involved the extraction of resources and wealth from conquered nations. Occupied countries were forced to contribute to the German war effort. Economic policies were designed to benefit Germany at the expense of occupied populations. Assets and industries were seized and redirected to serve German interests. This economic exploitation caused widespread suffering and long-term damage to occupied territories. The Allied forces faced significant challenges in matching Germany's military expansion. Germany's rearmament programs under Hitler rapidly increased its military capabilities. The Allies, still recovering from WWI, were slower to mobilize and modernize their forces. This disparity created a period of vulnerability for the Allied nations. Germany exploited this weakness through aggressive expansionist policies. The imbalance in military strength contributed to the outbreak of World War II. Diplomacy aims to resolve international tensions and prevent conflicts. However, diplomatic efforts sometimes fail to achieve their objectives. These failures can result in escalation of tensions and outbreak of war. Historical examples illustrate the consequences of failed diplomacy. Analyzing these failures provides insights into improving diplomatic strategies. Effective diplomacy requires understanding, compromise, and commitment from all parties. Isolationist policies in the U.S. historically aimed to minimize involvement in foreign affairs. These policies often stemmed from a desire to avoid entanglement in European conflicts. U.S. isolationism impacted European affairs by reducing American influence and intervention. This approach sometimes created a power vacuum that other nations could exploit. Reduced U.S. engagement could lead to shifts in the balance of power within Europe. Ultimately, isolationism shaped the trajectory of European political and economic developments. The European arms race refers to the competitive military buildup among European powers. This escalation was characterized by rapid advancements in military technology and increased defense spending. The arms race heightened tensions and contributed to an environment of mistrust among nations. It ultimately played a significant role in the outbreak of major conflicts. International law relies on treaties and agreements between nations. A breakdown occurs when nations disregard these established laws. This can manifest as violations of sovereignty or human rights. International institutions are designed to enforce these laws. Failure occurs when these institutions lack the power or will to act. This can lead to conflicts and instability between nations. Economic sanctions were imposed on Germany with the aim of limiting its economic and military capabilities. These sanctions restricted Germany's access to international trade and financial markets. The goal was to weaken Germany's ability to rearm and pose a threat to international peace. However, the effectiveness of these sanctions was limited due to various factors. Circumvention strategies and alternative trade partners allowed Germany to mitigate some of the intended impact. Political polarization refers to the divergence of political attitudes toward ideological extremes. This phenomenon is increasingly evident within many European nations. It manifests as growing divisions between political parties and societal groups. These divisions often center on key issues such as immigration, national identity, and economic policy. The visuals depict various instances of social unrest and protests across European countries. These events reflect underlying tensions and grievances within European societies. The protests may stem from diverse socio-economic or political issues. The scenes highlight the visible manifestations of public discontent in Europe. The Treaty of Versailles imposed significant restrictions on Germany after World War I. However, certain ambiguities and omissions in the treaty created loopholes. Germany strategically exploited these loopholes to circumvent the intended limitations. This circumvention involved rearmament and rebuilding military capabilities under disguised means. These actions ultimately undermined the treaty's goals and contributed to future instability. Germany initiated secret rearmament programs, violating post-World War I treaties. These programs aimed to rebuild Germany's military strength and industrial capacity. Rearmament efforts were concealed through various clandestine operations and deceptive practices. The clandestine buildup included the development of new weapons and military technologies. This secret rearmament laid the groundwork for Germany's aggressive expansionist policies. Military alliances are formal agreements between nations for mutual defense and security. These alliances often arise from shared strategic interests or perceived threats. The Axis powers, during World War II, exemplify a military alliance driven by expansionist goals. Such alliances can reshape global power dynamics and escalate international conflicts. Fascism, communism, and democracy represent distinct political ideologies. These ideologies differ significantly in their core principles and governance structures. Fascism emphasizes nationalism and centralized authoritarian control. Communism advocates for a classless society and collective ownership of resources, while democracy promotes individual rights and representative government. Extremist movements often employ propaganda techniques to manipulate public opinion. Propaganda aims to influence attitudes and behaviors through biased or misleading information. Common techniques include name-calling, using derogatory labels to create negative associations. Another technique is glittering generalities, employing vague, emotionally appealing words. Testimonials, endorsements from respected figures are also frequently used. Bandwagon appeals create a sense of urgency to join a popular movement or idea. Youth indoctrination is a systematic process used by totalitarian regimes. It aims to instill specific beliefs and ideologies in young people. Nazi Germany employed extensive youth programs for indoctrination. These programs promoted Nazi ideology and obedience to the state. Other totalitarian states have also utilized similar methods. The goal is to ensure future generations support the regime's agenda. Totalitarian regimes often systematically erode civil liberties and human rights. This erosion involves restricting freedoms of speech, assembly, and the press. Governments may implement surveillance and control over communication channels. Due process and fair trials are frequently undermined or eliminated. These actions consolidate power and suppress dissent within the population. Nazi Germany systematically persecuted minorities, particularly Jews. This persecution involved discriminatory laws and policies. Jews were marginalized and excluded from society. Violence and forced displacement were common occurrences. The persecution culminated in the Holocaust, a genocide targeting Jews and other minorities. Concentration camps were initially developed as detention centers, These camps serve to incarcerate groups defined by political, racial, or social criteria. The purpose evolved from simple detention to forced labor and systematic extermination. Inmates were subjected to inhumane conditions, including starvation and disease. Concentration camps became a tool for oppression and genocide during the 20th century. This scene depicts the visual aspects of war preparations in Germany and other European countries. It focuses on indoor settings where strategic planning and logistical arrangements are underway. The time frame is set during the day, suggesting active and ongoing preparations. Visual elements may include maps, military personnel, and communication equipment. The overall atmosphere conveys a sense of urgency and impending conflict. Political and military leaders often face complex decision-making scenarios. Miscalculations can arise from incomplete information or flawed analysis. Strategic errors may stem from overconfidence or misjudgment of the adversary. These errors can lead to adverse outcomes, impacting both short-term objectives and long-term goals. Analyzing past miscalculation provides valuable lessons for future leadership. Understanding the root causes of these errors is crucial for improving strategic decision-making processes. Intelligence failures can significantly contribute to the outbreak of war. Misinterpreting an adversary's intentions is a common intelligence failure. Underestimating an enemy's capabilities can lead to strategic miscalculations. Ignoring or dismissing critical warning signs is another form of intelligence failure. Communication breakdowns between nations often stem from misunderstandings of cultural nuances. Differing political ideologies can create significant barriers to effective dialogue. Language barriers, even with translation, can lead to misinterpretations and friction. Historical grievances and unresolved conflicts frequently impede open communication channels. Economic competition and trade disputes can exacerbate tensions and hinder collaboration. Lack of trust and transparency in diplomatic relations further complicates international communication efforts. Diplomatic solutions involve negotiation, dialogue, and compromise between conflicting parties. Missed opportunities arise when potential avenues for peaceful resolution are not pursued or are prematurely abandoned. Analyzing these instances requires examining the decisions, actions, and communications of all involved actors. Understanding why diplomatic paths were not taken can inform future strategies for conflict resolution and prevention. Economic warfare involves employing financial and trade measures to weaken an enemy's economy. Strategies include imposing sanctions, tariffs, and trade barriers to disrupt economic activity. Nations may also manipulate currency exchange rates to gain economic advantages. Cyber attacks targeting financial institutions and infrastructure are also components of economic warfare. Trade restrictions are government-imposed limitations on the free international exchange of goods or services. These restrictions are often implemented as protectionist measures to shield domestic industries from foreign competition. Common forms include tariffs, which are taxes on imports, and quotas, which limit the quantity of imports. Other measures involve regulatory hurdles or subsidies that favor domestic producers over foreign ones. Resource control is crucial in the lead-up to war, influencing a nation's capacity to wage and sustain conflict. Securing access to vital resources like oil, minerals, and strategic materials enhances military strength. Denying resources to potential adversaries weakens their ability to mobilize and equip forces. Nations often engage in economic and political strategies to ensure resource dominance before engaging in war. A debt crisis arises when a country struggles to repay its sovereign debt. Such crises can strain international relations due to required bailouts and negotiations. Nations may impose austerity measures, impacting social and economic stability. International organizations often play a crucial role in mediating and resolving debt crises. Financial instability refers to a state where the financial system is vulnerable to shocks. These shocks can disrupt the flow of credit and financial services. Banking crises are a severe form of financial instability. They involve widespread failures or near failures of banking institutions. Such crises often lead to significant economic downturns and require government intervention. Speculative bubbles occur when asset prices rise far above their intrinsic value. This inflated value is driven by excessive investor optimism and speculation. The bubble expands as more investors buy into the asset, anticipating further gains. Eventually, the bubble bursts when investors realize the asset is overvalued. The bursting of a speculative bubble can trigger significant economic downturns. Stock market crashes are sudden, significant declines in stock prices across a substantial section of a stock market. These crashes can result in a rapid loss of wealth and investor confidence. Market crashes often trigger or exacerbate economic recessions. Government intervention and policy changes are common responses to mitigate the impact of crashes. Unemployment refers to the state of actively seeking work, but being unable to find it. High unemployment rates often indicate economic downturns or recessions. Long unemployment lines visually represent a large number of individuals without jobs. Prolonged unemployment can lead to financial instability and hardship for individuals and families. Social hardship includes increased poverty, homelessness, and mental health issues. Government and community support systems play a crucial role in mitigating the effects of unemployment. Breadlines represent a severe consequence of economic hardship and widespread poverty. They emerge when a significant portion of the population lacks sufficient resources to purchase food. Food shortages can be caused by various factors, including economic depression, war, or natural disasters. These shortages lead to a scarcity of essential food items in markets and stores. Consequently, people are forced to queue in breadlines to receive minimal food rations for survival. Eviction is the legal process of removing a tenant from a property, often due to failure to pay rent or violation of lease terms. Evictions can lead to immediate homelessness, disrupting individuals' and families' lives. The lack of stable housing impacts employment, health, and education, creating a cycle of poverty. Support services and policy interventions are crucial to prevent evictions and address homelessness. Shantytowns are characterized by makeshift housing constructed from readily available materials. These informal settlements often lack basic infrastructure and essential services. Makeshift housing reflects the urgent need for shelter in resource-scarce environments. The construction and appearance of shantytowns vary based on local resources and climate conditions. The scene visually represents the emotional states of despair. It also represents hopelessness among a population. The setting is indoors, enhancing the feeling of confinement. The time of day is daytime, contrasting with the darkness of the emotions. Erosion of trust refers to the declining confidence in governmental bodies and institutions. This decline can stem from various factors, including perceived corruption or ineffectiveness. Lack of transparency and accountability also contribute to the erosion of trust. The consequences include reduced civic engagement and social instability. Conspiracy theories attempt to explain events as the result of secret plots by powerful actors. These theories often arise in response to events that are complex, uncertain, or frightening. A key characteristic is the assumption that official explanations are false or incomplete. Conspiracy theories can spread rapidly through social networks and online platforms. They can influence public opinion by shaping beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors related to specific issues. The impact on public opinion can range from increased skepticism to political polarization and even violence. Scapegoating is a psychological and social phenomenon where blame is irrationally directed towards an individual or group. This process often involves attributing negative characteristics or failures to the scapegoat. Scapegoating serves as a mechanism to deflect responsibility and reduce feelings of guilt or anxiety within a larger group. It can lead to increased prejudice and discrimination against the scapegoated individual or group. The act of scapegoating often exploits existing social divisions, exacerbating tensions and conflicts. Historically, scapegoating has been used to justify violence, oppression, and even genocide against marginalized communities. Demagoguery is a political tactic that appeals to emotions and prejudices rather than reason. It often involves the use of inflammatory language and false claims to manipulate public opinion. A common characteristic is the simplification of complex issues into easily digestible, often misleading, narratives. Demagogues frequently exploit existing social divisions to create an us versus them mentality. This can lead to increased polarization and a breakdown of civil discourse in political debates. Ultimately, demagoguery undermines informed decision-making and can erode trust in democratic institutions. Authoritarian tendencies involve the concentration of power in a single entity. These tendencies often suppress dissent and limit individual freedoms. They manifest through strict control over information and media. Authoritarian movements typically exhibit a strong emphasis on obedience to authority. They may employ propaganda to manipulate public opinion and maintain control. Such movements often prioritize state interests over individual rights and liberties. Suppression of dissent refers to actions taken by authorities to stifle opposition. These actions aim to silence or marginalize dissenting voices. Methods of suppression can include censorship of media and information. Restrictions on freedom of assembly are also common tactics. Legal and judicial systems may be manipulated to target opposition groups. Ultimately, the goal is to maintain power by eliminating challenges to the status quo. Political purges are actions taken by a regime to remove individuals or groups deemed undesirable. These actions often target political opponents, dissidents, or those perceived as threats. Purges can involve dismissal from positions, imprisonment, exile, or even execution. The impact on society includes fear, suppression of dissent, and a concentration of power. Historically, political purges have been used to consolidate power and enforce ideological conformity. Show trials are public judicial proceedings staged for propagandistic purposes. These trials are designed to influence public opinion rather than ensure justice. The outcome is predetermined, with the accused often forced to confess. Confessions are typically obtained through coercion, torture, or psychological manipulation. The proceedings are carefully orchestrated to demonize the accused and their ideologies. The goal is to solidify the ruling power's legitimacy and suppress dissent. Secret police are a critical tool for maintaining control in totalitarian regimes. Their primary function is to suppress dissent and eliminate opposition through surveillance and intimidation. They operate outside the normal legal framework, often with impunity, to enforce the regime's ideology. This creates a climate of fear, discouraging any challenge to the ruling power. Surveillance involves the monitoring of behavior, activities, or information for the purpose of influence, management, direction, or protection. Civil liberties are fundamental rights and freedoms that protect individuals from unwarranted governmental intrusion. Surveillance can potentially infringe upon civil liberties such as privacy, freedom of expression, and freedom of association. The balance between security needs and the protection of civil liberties is a central debate in the context of surveillance practices. Censorship is the suppression or prohibition of speech, public communication, or other information. It is typically carried out by governments, private institutions, or other controlling bodies. The primary goal of censorship is to control the flow of information and limit public awareness. Censorship can be applied to various forms of expression, including books, films, music, and online content. Methods of censorship range from outright bans to subtle forms of manipulation and filtering. The justification for censorship often involves national security, public morality, or the protection of specific groups. Book burning is the deliberate destruction by fire of books or other written materials. It is often carried out in a public context. Book burning represents an act of censorship and suppression. It is used to remove ideas or information considered culturally, religiously, or politically threatening. Historically, book burnings have been employed by governments, institutions, and groups. The act serves as a powerful symbol of oppression and intellectual control. Cultural control refers to the influence a society exerts on artistic expression. It encompasses the norms, values, and beliefs that shape artistic creation and reception. Cultural control can promote certain artistic styles or themes while suppressing others. This influence can stem from government policies, religious institutions, or societal expectations. The impact of cultural control on art varies, ranging from subtle guidance to overt censorship. Historical revisionism involves reinterpreting historical events. It aims to challenge or alter established narratives. When used as propaganda, it distorts history for political gain. This manipulation can create a false sense of national identity. It often involves selective use of facts and omission of others. The goal is to influence public opinion and justify actions. National myths are foundational narratives that define a nation's perceived origins and character. These myths often involve heroic figures, significant events, and symbolic landscapes. They provide a shared sense of history and destiny, fostering national unity. National myths contribute significantly to the formation and reinforcement of national identity. Cults of personality arise around totalitarian leaders. These cults involve the intentional creation of a public image. The leader is presented as an idealized, heroic figure. This image is often promoted through propaganda and media control. Mass rallies are often used as a tool for propaganda. These events gather large crowds to promote a specific ideology or message. The visual impact of a large gathering can create a sense of unity and support. Rallies can be carefully orchestrated to influence public opinion and reinforce political agendas. Totalitarian societies prioritize uniformity in thought, belief, and behavior among their citizens. Conformity is enforced through various mechanisms, including propaganda, surveillance, and suppression of dissent. Individual expression and deviation from the norm are actively discouraged and often punished. This emphasis on uniformity aims to create a cohesive and controllable population loyal to the state ideology. The suppression of individuality serves to eliminate potential sources of opposition or alternative viewpoints. Military parades serve as visual displays of a nation's military strength and readiness. These parades often showcase advanced weaponry, equipment, and well-trained personnel. They are strategically employed to project power both domestically and internationally. The scale and precision of military parades can influence public perception and deter potential adversaries. Militarization of society refers to the increasing influence of military values and practices on civilian life. This process involves the normalization of military ideals within societal institutions and culture. It can manifest through increased military spending, presence, and rhetoric in public spaces. The militarization of society also affects education, media, and law enforcement. This trend can lead to a heightened sense of security, but also potential erosion of civil liberties. Ultimately, it reshapes the relationship between the state, its military, and its citizens. War games are simulation exercises used by military strategists. These exercises involve simulated combat scenarios to analyze potential strategies. War games help in understanding the strengths and weaknesses of different tactics. They also serve as a training tool for military personnel. Weapons stockpiling refers to the accumulation of arms and military equipment. Stockpiles can include firearms, ammunition, explosives, and other military hardware. Stockpiling may be conducted by governments, military factions, or non-state actors. Motivations for stockpiling range from national defense to preparation for conflict. The uncontrolled accumulation of weapons can contribute to regional instability and violence. Defensive fortifications are structures or constructions designed to protect a location against attack. These fortifications can range from simple barricades to complex, multi-layered systems. The primary purpose is to delay, deter, or prevent enemy forces from entering or occupying a specific area. Building defenses involves strategic placement and construction to maximize protection and tactical advantage. Common materials used include wood, stone, metal, and earth, depending on availability and the level of defense required. Military mobilization is the process of assembling and organizing military resources for active service. It involves calling up reserves and activating military units. Mobilization also includes preparing equipment and supplies for deployment. The process requires coordinating personnel, logistics, and transportation. Effective mobilization is crucial for a timely and efficient military response. False flag operations are covert actions designed to deceive. These operations are carried out in such a way that they appear to be perpetrated by entities other than those who actually planned and executed them. Historically, false flag operations have been used to create pretexts for war or other aggressive actions. The goal is often to manipulate public opinion and garner support for a conflict by blaming another party. Border incidents refer to events occurring at or near international boundaries. These incidents can range from minor disputes to significant confrontations. Escalation occurs when these incidents increase in intensity or scope. Escalation may involve increased military presence or hostile actions. Unresolved escalation can lead to larger conflicts between nations. An ultimatum is a final demand or statement of terms. It is issued by one party to another, often backed by a threat of serious consequences. In diplomacy, ultimatums are used to force a specific action or concession. The issuing party sets a deadline for compliance. Failure to meet the deadline results in the threatened action. Ultimatums are considered a high-risk strategy due to their confrontational nature. A declaration of war is a formal act by which one nation announces that it is entering into a state of armed conflict with another. This declaration is typically a statement of intent, outlining the reasons for the conflict. It also serves as a legal notification to other nations regarding the change in international relations. The declaration triggers immediate consequences, including mobilization, economic sanctions, and altered diplomatic relations. Initial military invasions often involve the rapid deployment of armed forces into a targeted region. These actions frequently lead to immediate and significant disruptions in civilian life. Infrastructure, including homes and essential services, can suffer extensive damage. Civilian populations may experience displacement, casualties, and profound psychological trauma. A refugee crisis involves mass displacement of people across international borders. This displacement is typically driven by conflict, persecution, or violence. Refugee crises lead to dire humanitarian consequences, including food shortages and inadequate shelter. International aid organizations play a crucial role in providing assistance and protection to refugees. War leads to significant economic disruption. Production capabilities are often destroyed or severely hampered. Trade routes and supply chains are disrupted, leading to shortages. Investment declines as uncertainty increases. Inflation often rises due to scarcity and increased government spending. Reconstruction efforts require significant resources and time. Trade route disruptions involve interruptions to the flow of goods and services. These disruptions can stem from various factors, including geopolitical events. Natural disasters and economic instability are also major causes. Such disruptions lead to supply chain bottlenecks and economic consequences. Resource scarcity refers to the limited availability of essential resources relative to demand. This scarcity impacts daily life by limiting access to necessities like water, food, and energy. Reduced access can lead to increased prices, affecting affordability and living standards. The consequences of resource scarcity can include social unrest and economic instability. Rationing is a system implemented to fairly distribute scarce resources or goods. It is typically introduced during times of crisis, such as war or natural disasters. The primary goal is to ensure equitable access to essential items for the entire population. Rationing prevents hoarding and price gouging, which can exacerbate shortages. It involves setting limits on the amount of specific goods individuals can purchase. Rationing aims to maintain social stability and prevent widespread deprivation. Black markets emerge and thrive during wartime due to economic disruptions. These markets operate outside of government regulation and legal frameworks. Scarcity of goods and services fuels the demand within black markets. Price controls and rationing policies often contribute to their growth. They can provide access to essential items that are otherwise unavailable. However, they undermine official economic policies and can support illegal activities. War bonds are debt securities issued by a government to finance military operations and other expenditures in times of war. They provide a means for citizens to lend money to the government, supporting the war effort. The funds raised through war bonds are used to cover various war-related costs, such as weapons, supplies, and personnel. These bonds are typically sold to the public with a promise to repay the principal amount, plus interest, after a specified period. War bonds can also serve as a tool to manage inflation and stabilize the economy during wartime. Propaganda posters are visual tools used to influence public opinion. These posters often convey biased or misleading information. They aim to promote a specific political agenda or viewpoint. Common themes include nationalism, patriotism, and demonization of enemies. Effective posters use striking imagery and simple, memorable slogans. The goal is to evoke an emotional response and encourage specific actions or beliefs. Newsreels are short films presenting current news topics. They were a primary source of information for the public, especially before television. Newsreels often presented a specific viewpoint or narrative. This perspective influenced public perception of events and issues. Thus, newsreels played a significant role in shaping public opinion. Wartime necessitates a rapid shift in industrial priorities. Factories are repurposed to manufacture military equipment and supplies. This transition often leads to increased production rates and technological advancements. Consumer goods production typically decreases due to resource allocation to the war effort. The demand for raw materials surges, impacting supply chains and resource management. Wartime production significantly reshapes national economies and labor forces. War often accelerates technological development due to urgent needs and intense competition. Advancements span various fields, including communication, transportation, and weaponry. Examples include the development of radar, jet engines, and advanced medical techniques. These innovations often have significant peacetime applications, impacting civilian life. However, the ethical implications of war-driven technology must be carefully considered. New weapons fundamentally alter the dynamics of conflict. Technological advancements in weaponry often lead to shifts in military strategy. The introduction of novel weapons can create imbalances in power between opposing forces. New weapons can also raise ethical considerations regarding their use and potential impact on civilians. Air raids involve aerial attacks on ground targets, often in urban areas. These attacks typically employ explosives and incendiary devices. The primary goal is often to cripple infrastructure and demoralize the population. Air raids result in widespread destruction of buildings and essential services. Civilian casualties are a common and devastating consequence of air raids. Bomb shelters are protective structures designed to provide safety during bombings or other attacks. They aim to minimize harm from explosions, debris, and radiation. These shelters can be individual units or communal spaces. They are typically reinforced to withstand significant impacts and environmental hazards. Civilian casualties represent a devastating consequence of armed conflicts. These casualties encompass non-combatants who are injured or killed during wartime. The human cost of war extends far beyond military personnel. Civilian suffering highlights the profound and lasting impact of war on communities. Wartime trauma refers to the psychological and emotional distress experienced by individuals during or after armed conflicts. Exposure to combat, violence, loss, and displacement can lead to significant mental health challenges. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a common long-term effect, characterized by intrusive memories, avoidance behaviors, and hyperarousal. Depression and anxiety disorders can also manifest as a result of the chronic stress and trauma endured during wartime. Substance abuse may develop as a coping mechanism to deal with the overwhelming emotional pain and psychological distress. The long-term effects of wartime trauma can significantly impact an individual's ability to function in daily life, affecting relationships, work, and overall well-being. Post-war reconstruction involves rebuilding infrastructure and economies after conflict. It addresses physical damage to buildings, roads, and utilities. Economic recovery focuses on re-establishing trade and employment. Social and political reforms aim to foster stability and prevent future conflicts. The new international order emerged in the aftermath of World War II. It was designed to foster global cooperation and prevent future large-scale conflicts. Key institutions like the United Nations were established to promote diplomacy and collective security. Economic structures, such as the Bretton Woods system, aimed to stabilize international finance and trade. The order reflected a shift in global power dynamics, with the United States and the Soviet Union playing dominant roles. The United Nations was established in the aftermath of World War II. Its primary goal was to prevent future global conflicts through international cooperation. The UN Charter was signed on the 26th of June 1945 in San Francisco. It officially came into effect on the 24th of October 1945. The initial membership consisted of 51 founding member states. The UN's formation marked a significant step towards multilateral diplomacy and global governance. The interwar period offers critical insights into international relations and policy failures. Analyzing this era helps identify factors leading to global conflict. Key lessons involve understanding economic instability and its impact. It also highlights the dangers of appeasement and unchecked aggression. Conflict prevention involves proactive measures to address potential sources of disputes. Effective governance and inclusive political systems are crucial for preventing conflicts. Promoting economic development and reducing inequality can mitigate conflict risks. Strengthening social cohesion and intergroup relations helps prevent conflict escalation. Early warning systems and conflict analysis are essential for identifying potential crises. Diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation are key tools for resolving disputes peacefully. Diplomacy is essential for managing international relations peacefully. It involves negotiation and dialogue between nations to resolve conflicts. Effective diplomacy promotes mutual understanding and cooperation. International cooperation is vital for addressing global challenges. Economic stability ensures consistent economic growth and reduces volatility. It fosters a predictable environment for businesses, encouraging investment and job creation. Social justice promotes fair distribution of resources and opportunities across society. Together, they create a balanced and sustainable foundation for societal well-being and progress. The rule of law is a fundamental principle of governance. It asserts that all individuals and institutions are accountable to laws. These laws are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, and independently adjudicated. Human rights are moral principles or norms that describe certain standards of human behavior. They are regularly protected as legal rights in national and international law. Vigilance is crucial to protect society from the dangers of extremism and intolerance. Extremism involves ideologies or actions considered far outside the accepted norms of a society. Intolerance is defined as the unwillingness to accept views, beliefs, or behaviors that differ from one's own. Both extremism and intolerance can lead to discrimination, violence, and the suppression of individual rights. Maintaining vigilance requires active monitoring, education, and promotion of inclusive values. Remembering the past is crucial for societal progress and learning. Historical awareness enables the identification of recurring patterns and errors. Understanding past mistakes provides opportunities to implement preventive measures. Studying history fosters critical thinking and informed decision-making. A comprehensive knowledge of the past promotes a more nuanced understanding of current events. By learning from history, societies can strive to avoid repeating detrimental actions.